The Venezuelan government denounced an attempted false flag operation by the U.S. DEA agency to justify its ongoing aggression against the Bolivarian nation. In Cuba, Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla presented the yearly report on the impact of the U.S. blockade. And in a new important setback for Milei's government, the lower chamber of Congress has just overruled his last two presidential vetoes on key financing for education and healthcare. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. This Wednesday, Venezuelan Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello denounced an attempted false flag operation by the U.S. DEA agency to justify its ongoing aggression against the Bolivarian nation. The Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace reported that over 3,600 kilograms of cocaine were seized during the operation, in which 4 people with Venezuelan identity cards were detained carrying no weapons. The Venezuelan investigation revealed, thanks to boat's GPS data, that the vessel was traveling with 4 overboard engines and had left from Colombia, entered Venezuelan waters to then go north and be intercepted by the U.S. and used it as justification of military aspirations across the Caribbean. Diosdado Cabello reiterated Venezuela's commitment to face drug trafficking, adding that so far this year they have seized 60 tons of drugs in anti-drug operations.
I am saying this with full knowledge of the facts. And let me make this very clear. Levy, Enrique Lopez Baudiz, is a DEA agent and a drug trafficker, and against Venezuela. This was going to be part of a false flag operation. 4 citizens were arrested. Venezuelan fishermen know that when they go out to work, they do not take their ID cards or anything else with them. How strange that these 4 citizens had their ID cards there, ready to be handed over. That boat with drugs was a false flag operation by the D to accuse Venezuela. For detainees with Venezuelan ID cards were going to be presented. That is what the detainees are saying. They are the ones saying this. Mr. Levy Enrique Lopez Baudiz works for the DEA. The criminals know this. And this person is collaborating in this operation. We receive the information, and we begin to do our job as necessary, successfully. The most important thing for us is that we seized 3,680 kilograms of cocaine, arrested 4 individuals, and have fully identified who sent the drugs and why.
The Venezuelan authority also reported that 60 tons of drugs have been seized during the year in various operations across the country. Let's listen.
We have already announced that a few days ago, 2 days ago, on Sunday night into Monday morning, a group of citizens were captured in a boat with a significant amount of drugs. In this case, cocaine. All of this is the result of intelligence work that we have been doing for quite some time now, which has allowed us to arrive at this point where 60,070 kilograms of drugs, 60 tons of drugs, have already been seized in various operations this year.
For his part, Venezuela's Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, announced Wednesday the beginning of the military drill Caribe Soberano 200 in the face of the U.S. threats against the national sovereignty. Padrino Lopez informed that the training follows President Nicolás Maduro's guidelines within Operation Independencia 200, which seeks to guarantee peace in the country. He also signaled that the drill are carried out in the face of the increase of the U.S. threats against the Venezuelan people and as a strong show of support for the defense of the nation's sovereignty. The military operation is taking place in the Orchila archipelago in the state of La Guaira, with a deployment of air and maritime means of defense, including drones and submarines.
In other words, there will be a deployment of defense resources, including armed drones, surveillance drones, underwater drones, and airborne drones for surveillance of the area, and also for the offensive capabilities of the drones, as well as deployment of Buk missile systems and Su anti-aircraft systems.
The Venezuelan Ministry of Defense also announced the deployment of a surveillance plan to protect the country's fishermen and oil and gas activities as well.
We are, as is appropriate to our doctrine, increasing our operational readiness in the Caribbean so that our fishermen can have confidence, faith in their work, and in their daily productive tasks, so that all productive activities in Venezuela, including oil and gas, can be carried out in complete peace.
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez also sent letters to 7 international organizations related to commercial fishing, denouncing the illegal and aggressive U.S. assault of a U.S.-flagged fishing vessel with a Navy destroyer on September 12, 2025. In the letter, the Venezuelan Vice President pointed out, as you can see, the use of a missile ship and military commando personnel against a civilian fishing vessel is a clearly disproportionate act. It violates the rules and principles governing maritime navigation control operations and undermines the free exercise of fishing activities. It also violates the human rights of the 9 fishermen involved, including their rights to freedom and personal integrity as well. The letter goes on. Venezuela has a long-standing tradition of fishing in the Caribbean Sea, and both artisanal and industrial one, as well as a significant fishing fleet on a solid processing and marketing chain for its products. Therefore, it considers unacceptable that its productive activity and economic development should be hindered by unjustified operations that are clearly contrary to the law. The letter concludes saying, in view of the aforementioned, I appear before you to put on record this serious violation committed by the authorities of the United States of America, and at the same time to request a firm condemnation of this act of aggression against Venezuelan fishermen. All of this in order to protect the rights of fishermen and the lawful exercise of fishing activities. And we stay in Venezuela, where a recent survey applied in Venezuela confirms the popular rejection to a potential foreign military aggression against the Bolivarian nation. Precisely 1,200 interviews conducted by the Venezuelan intelligence agency revealed that 93% of Venezuelans disagree with foreign military intervention against the country. Only 5% of those polled agreed with an external military action, while 2% say that they do not know or prefer not to answer. The resounding response obtained demonstrates the national consensus against the refusal of foreign powers to interfere in the nation's sovereignty. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla presented the yearly report on the impact of the U.S. economic, commercial, and financial blockade. The report covers the period from March 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. It demonstrates with numbers the areas affected by the U.S. coercive measure in sectors of social impact, such as economic development, health, and education. The Cuban foreign minister added that in addition to the tangible negative effects, there is a psychological impact that is impossible to quantify. Rodriguez also announced that on October 28th and 29th, the United Nations General Assembly will once again vote on the draft resolution to end the U.S. blockade.
What underlies this reality? 2 months of blockade, 60 days of blockade, equal the cost of fuel to meet the normal electricity demand in this country. The damage from 2 months of blockade is equivalent to $1.6 billion US. If this blockade were to end for 2 months, we would have the resources to guarantee the fuel needed to produce electricity.
Bruno Rodriguez also stated that in the last 12 months, the U.S. strengthening of the economic blockade increased by 49%.
The blockade has caused damages and losses estimated at over $7.5 billion US. Over 7.5 billion. This means that the damage caused by the blockade has increased by 49% compared to the previous period, as a result of the additional measures to strengthen the blockade implemented over the last 12 months. The impact of the blockade compared to the previous year increased by an additional $2.4 billion US.
The Cuban top diplomats' report showed in figures the economic impact of the U.S. blockade on the Caribbean islands' economy as well. More than 80% of Cubans were burned after the U.S. blockade, which is the main obstacle to the recovery of the country's economy. After more than 6 decades of blockade, the damages amounted to $170,677 million US between March 2024 and February 2025 alone. The damages were estimated at $7,556 billion. And due to the intensification of this policy, the impact on the 2024-2025 period was $2,499 billion more than that of 2023-2024. The report concludes that if there hadn't been a blockade, Cuba's GDP in 2024 would have grown by around 9.2%. We go now to Argentina, where in a new important setback for Milei's government, the lower chamber of Congress has just overruled his last 2 presidential vetoes on key financing for education and healthcare. With 181 votes in favor, the Chamber of Deputies rejected Milei's veto to the pediatric emergency law, and with 174 votes, the veto on the university funding law. The ruling needs to be approved by the Senate, becoming final. The Chamber of Deputies' decision is another hard blow to Milei's administration, which piles up legislative and electoral losses weeks after the midterm legislative elections in the country were held. During the Deputy Chamber's debate, thousands of university students, teachers, and workers gathered outside Congress to pressure the lawmakers to follow the people's demands and reject the presidential vetoes. The demonstration brought together key affected sectors in a joint move to resist government cuts. And let's find out more on these key laws that President Milei had vetoed and that the lower chamber of Congress has just upheld. The university financing law that had been approved by the Senate on August 22, 2025, was vetoed by the President on September 10th. The law intends to progressively increase the university budget from 1% of GDP in 2026 to 1.5% in 2031. The objective is to increase funding for public universities, adjust teaching and non-teaching salaries in line with inflation, and also update operating expenses. In addition, the law would provide funds for infrastructure, scholarships, and academic activities. For its part, the Pediatric Hospitals Funding Law, passed by Congress in August 2025, was also vetoed by Milei on September 11th. The law had been promoted mainly by the physicians at the Garrahan Children's Hospitals in Buenos Aires, the main pediatric health center in the country. The law declares a state of emergency in pediatric health care for 2 years, ordering the immediate allocation of resources to the public sector and the readjustment of salaries, as the workers insisted that the functioning of the hospital is at risk due to underfunding and low wages. We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, at least 45 Palestinians, including 23 from Gaza City, were killed and others were injured in the ongoing Israeli shelling of the Gaza Strip. The Nasser Medical Complex reported that in the Shati refugee camp west of the Gaza City, 6 Palestinians were killed and others were injured in an Israeli airstrike targeting homes in the camp. The authorities also reported more than 50 injured amid a gathering of displaced people to receive humanitarian aid near a distribution center north of Rafah. For their part, more than 100 Palestinians were killed on Tuesday after the start of a new ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, bringing the death toll to nearly 65,000 and more than 165,300 injured since October 7, 2023. In this context, Pope Leo XIV shared on Wednesday a message of solidarity with Palestinians, renewing his call for a ceasefire in Gaza.
I express my deep solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, who continue to live in fear and endure unacceptable conditions, forced once again to leave their lands, before the Almighty Lord who commanded, "Thou shalt not kill," and in the presence of all human history, every person always has an inviolable dignity to respect and preserve. I renew the call for a ceasefire, the release of hostages, a negotiated diplomatic solution, and full respect for international humanitarian law. I invite everyone to join my heartfelt prayer, so that a dawn of peace and justice may soon rise.
Affinché sorga presto un'alba di pace.
On Tuesday, Venezuela held a roundtable titled Palestine Recessed Voices, Stories and Bridges of Solidarity to further denounce the genocide perpetrated by Israel in the Gaza Strip. The discussion took place at the Pueblos Institute for Original Thought, where the leader of the Platform of Solidarity with the Palestinian Cause, Hindu Anderi, supported the battle for human rights around the world. The participants called upon the international community not to trivialize evil and to pressure the governments of Israel and the United States to end the genocide that has killed more than 64,000 Palestinians. In this context, the discussion highlighted that the Zionist expansion project is further fueling the flames of fascism and Nazism. Meanwhile, in Uruguay, hundreds demonstrated to demand the national government to break trade relations with Israel. For this, protesters mobilized to the Foreign Affairs building to condemn the Zionist genocide on the Gaza Strip. They urged Montevideo to adopt a clear and definite stand, because the one that they are having is not enough according to the seriousness of the conflict. In this regard, they called the government to act internationally to stop crimes against the Palestinian families. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov indicated that European countries have no place at the negotiating table to resolve the Ukrainian war. The head of Russian diplomacy stated that the West is seeking to join the negotiating table with the intention of inflicting a strategic defeat on Moscow. In this regard, the foreign minister pointed out that both Europe and Kiev are seeking to frustrate the peace efforts of US President Donald Trump. Sergei Lavrov also indicated that the Western minority does not understand the geopolitical situation, ignoring the principles of state sovereignty. And in other news, China opened the 12th XIANGSHAN Forum in Beijing, focusing on the international order and peaceful development. The event began on Wednesday with the presence of delegations from at least 100 countries and the presentation of 6 high-level dialogues focusing on the lessons of the anti-fascist World War for contemporary peace. According to the official agenda, the sessions and high-level dialogues will include topics such as the direction of relations between the great powers and urgent calls for reform in the global governance system. The 3-day meeting aims to protect the international order and to promote joint development in the Pacific. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.